Hi, hello, and welcome to week 12. And the cicadas are going to start going outside. That's fine. At any rate, hi, I'm Courtney, and I am a part-time artist with a full-time job, and I also do a lot of reading, knitting, and then sometimes spinning and quilting. If you've been following along on my channel for a while, then you know that I have been working my way through all 12 weeks of The Artist's Way, and this is it. This is the final week. We have made it. I am really excited to be done with this process. I'm excited to be able to make different content and have the time and space for that. But I'm also really proud of myself for finishing the whole book and seeing the whole program through. That's a big win for me. But let's dive in to what week 12 is about before we celebrate too much. So week 12 is about recovering a sense of faith, according to the chapter title. So some of the things that she talks about in the chapter are patience. So kind of like having faith in the idea, in the process, really just trusting the process. So for me, I think how that shows up is in my experimental sketchbook and then my travel sketchbook that I have at all times with me if I'm out and about. But I really like using that experimental sketchbook for those process pieces, for the ideas, for working on a thumbnail, seeing if a layout works for something, and just trying something before I actually work on the finished piece, or even writing down a list of ideas. So I think I'm going to do a quick little behind the scenes. I don't usually do sketchbook tours of the Ugly Sketchbook, but I'm willing to throw it out there in case it helps someone. So I'm going to grab my Ugly Sketchbook and let's take a look inside really quick. All right. So this is my old experimental / ugly sketchbook. So I started this in January of 2023, and I'm not sure when I gave up on it. It was sometime earlier this year. It was around March. Pretty sure it was March. But we started off with some doodles, some Christmas doodles, and then I had some trips. So this is the sketchbook I would take with me when I would travel because it is a soft cover and I kind of like that. So for like work trips and stuff where it's not a like fun trip and I'm not going to do any finished pieces, I would take this with me. But what I ended up figuring out is I really don't like this particular sketchbook because it is glue bound and it does not want to ever lay flat. It's pretty difficult to get it to open up and be able to work in. So I'm not going to go through every page because that will make this video way too long, but just a couple examples. So I use this mostly for testing out how I want a more finished piece to look. So this is a test of a piece that is in this more finished sketchbook. So let's see if I can find that. So yeah, this is the same plant that is from a trip to Palm Springs. So I was testing out if I wanted to do it in gouache. I ended up doing a colored pencil and I like that a lot better. So I use this to try to figure out ideas as I'm going, and then just some general like sketching practice, practicing perspective, practicing faces. I was working on that earlier this year. Still want to get better at people and faces, but I've not picked it up recently. I'm really terrible at animals and cats. I don't even know if you can see that, it's such a light drawing, but any of those skills I'm trying to improve on, I am working on in here. And then just kind of a little bit of a daily drawing practice. Then I have some ideas for a piece that I want to do. So I'll take notes about what I was thinking for the piece. And then this was just playing around with some extra paint I had on the palette that I was working on from something else. This was a pen test, so I'd gotten a couple new fountain pens. So I was playing around with those, but I ended up getting frustrated and kind of quitting somewhere in this neighborhood. I was just really tired of having to fight the book pages. So I've really kind of turned this more into a notebook slash sketchbook, so I can kind of work out an idea for the piece. This is actually working out whether or not I want the upper part of the background to be lighter or darker. And so that's really how I use this experimental sketchbook. It's much more jotting down quick ideas, roughing out something that I just can't visualize in my head so I can determine which way I want to do something. And I find it really helpful, and it's really useful for me to be able to capture all of those project ideas somewhere, and I can come back to this and look and see, you know, what I was planning or any details that I might have forgotten. And then also just to have a place where it doesn't matter what it looks like, because I did this in like a minute and a half. It's not about making a really refined drawing. It's just getting the idea down before I forget about it, so that maybe later I could come back and do that piece in the way that I intended to. But it's really helpful for me to have this sketchbook, and I still have an ugly sketchbook. I actually have another one now. This one I'm still kind of using these last few pages as note-taking space, but because I just really didn't like this particular sketchbook, this one stays at home, and the other experimental or ugly sketchbook will go out and about with me if I am going somewhere where I want to take it. So that's my ugly or experimental sketchbook. So I hope that was helpful or interesting for you. I have been using my ugly sketchbook more and keeping a different sketchbook for more finished pieces, kind of like a travel sketchbook a little bit. And I really like, I have 3 sketchbooks that are going at all times, and that process works for me. That may be a little excessive for some people, but that's what is working for me, so I'm going with it. Then another thing that this chapter talks about is the importance of the additional hobbies or activities that enhance your main creativity focus. So one of the things she talks about is like sewing and knitting and like gardening. So that made a lot of sense for me, because those are all things that I do that kind of give my brain a break from the other stuff, either from work or from my art practice. So this week I'm really going to lean in to those. I need to repot 2 of my plants, my larger ones. One of them is just like taking over the space it's in, and I've got some new supports that'll hopefully help keep it a little more wrangled because you can't walk past it where it is right now without running into it. And then I have another plant, my rubber tree, who just really struggled when I first got him, and he's like lost most of his lower leaves. So I want to chop him off, put some rooting hormone on him, repot, all that good stuff. Then I also have my knitting project to work on, and I've been thinking about getting my sewing projects back out. We'll see if that one happens. Can't guarantee that one, but we're definitely going to do some gardening and then knitting for sure. And I also need to do some organizing and straightening. So one of the things she talks about in various parts of the book is like keeping your space organized. So I need to reorganize my bookshelves. This has just been bothering me for a while. So I think it's time to do that. And that's actually going to be a separate video that comes out probably next week. So I probably won't film too much of that in this one, but you'll see a full length reorganizing of my bookshelves later. But that's the plan for the week. I think for right now, I'm actually going to do my morning art practice. I've got a little bit of time. I got a break from work right now before my next meeting. So I'm gonna have a coffee break, do a little bit of art, and then I'll catch back up with you later. I have not even started, and you're already doing the most, aren't you, kid? try something different on this box of tomatoes. I don't love what the shadows are doing here. I can't decide as the paint. I don't know that I like. This is the Turner gouache. I don't know if I just don't like this paint or if it's the way that I'm doing the layering. So I'm gonna try doing the shadows first, then the color on top of that, and see if I dislike it less. Because right now, this is a giant learning experience. This is not going to be something that is ever for sale. It might be a free printable or something because I don't love it. I don't love it at all. And I can't figure out why. But we're gonna experiment here. So I'm gonna let that dry, then I'm gonna come back and try doing the color over top of the shadow, because so far that looks less terrible. But we'll find out. Good morning. It's Wednesday. So today the plan is to do some of the non-creative things that are designed to help my brain rest according to like the entire book and week 12. So one of the things I'm going to do is reorganize my bookshelves because it's been bothering me for a while. And then I'm going to repot the giant monstera that's over there. That's gonna be I don't know if I'm ready for that challenge. But the other thing that I wanted to chat about just quickly is morning pages, because I was thinking to myself this morning, I am so ready to be done with these. I don't want to be doing morning pages anymore. I'm sick of it. It's a waste of time. And then I went on my morning walk. I was listening to a podcast, and it's an ADHD podcast. The podcast is ADHD Chatter. And I'm listening to some older episodes because I only recently found the podcast. And the one I was listening to was with a neuroscientist, and they were mostly talking about the gut and brain linkages. But one of the things, somehow they got in the topic of increasing dopamine and making the connections in your brain that are helpful for ADHD, and what are some of the best habits you can have to help your brain in processing things. And his number one tip was like journaling, but in like not a Dear Diary, this is what happened today, but just like brain dump kind of stuff. So basically morning pages. That was the neuroscientist's recommendation for helping yourself with ADHD. So guess I'm gonna keep doing those. I begrudgingly came home and did them this morning. Still a little salty about that I can't get rid of them because I don't like them. So I guess I'm still gonna keep doing them even after week 12 is over. At any rate, let's get our tasks taken care of for the day. We're going to, let's look at the plant. Let's go visit the plant. This is what I need to repot. You can see it's kind of like taken over the space, and like the kitchen is right here. So when I try to walk into the kitchen, I am running into a plant. So I'm going to hype myself up to repot this thing and not kill it. Hopefully. All right, wish me luck. All right, the bookshelves have been reorganized. I have filmed the bookshelf organization video, so that's fantastic. However, I don't think that we're going to get to dealing with Mr. Plant today. That's not in the cards. I have some work things I need to do, So I'm gonna go do that. And then this evening, I'm definitely gonna do some knitting on the couch. So that still counts as the like brain break. But for now, I'm gonna go do work and I'll probably catch up with you again tomorrow. So I thought I would take some time and sit down and just kind of review the last 12-ish weeks. Spoiler alert there. So I started The Artist's Way on April 1st, 2024, and I finished it on July 20th, 2024. So that's closer to 16 weeks, not exactly 12. I did take a couple of weeks off during that time just because life got a little bit hectic and I needed a break. So we'll call it 16 weeks. But I wanted to look back over that time period and reflect on what did I gain from this process? What did I learn? And did it enhance my creativity? So over those 16 weeks, I filled up 55 sketchbook spreads, or roughly 110 pages. Some weren't full spreads because they were kind of one-off pages or things that were never meant to go together, but we're going to call it 55 spreads over 5 different sketchbooks. And 2 of those sketchbooks I finished during this time. So there will be a sketchbook tour coming out in 2 weeks. So that's, I think, pretty good output for me. I don't have a time period where I've counted what I've done to compare that to, but it feels like a lot, and I do feel like I'm getting through my current sketchbook a lot faster than I have in the past, and I actually do have 4-ish sketchbooks going right now. So that's a lot of output, I think, at least for me. Then during this time period, I also finished 7 different pieces. So those are pieces that are either going to be in a gallery show or are available on my Etsy or will be available on my Etsy once I scan them. So that's pretty good for me. I think in roughly 3.5, 4 months, that's a decent amount of work because I do, again, work full time. So during this time period, I was working. I didn't take a lot of days off. If I did, they were for personal reasons, doctor's appointments and what have you. I ended up traveling over 10,000 miles for work with a sketchbook in hand. And I went on, I think, 7 or 8 different trips. Some were for work and some were also personal. But there was a lot of travel and a lot of work during this time period. And I still managed to get a lot of creative output done. And some of that output did result in gallery shows. And I had one gallery show during this time, and then I actually submitted some work to another show. It's actually more of an art festival. So I've got 7 pieces that are ready to go into that show. So that's super exciting. And overall, I do feel like I have been able to produce more. But so what about The Artist's Way has made that possible? So I was thinking about what my big takeaways were from this last 12 to 16 weeks. So one of the big things was to just kind of trust the process. And really in the last couple of weeks, I have been being more diligent about making a daily drawing practice of some sort a priority. So having that dedicated time, I feel like really helps me to enhance my output. And even if it's just a really quick sketch that's an idea of a piece that I might want to eventually make, that's still something that keeps the process going and keeps me moving forward. So that's been really valuable for me, and I'm definitely going to keep doing that. Then the other thing that I think this process has taught me is patience. And some pieces in the book really talk about letting the ideas come to you, not trying to rush things. And I know in the past that's definitely something I've struggled with, is trying to rush through pieces and get them finished. And I'm trying to slow down and not rush ideas and allow them to work themselves out. And that might mean I do multiple iterations of it in my sketchbook or on my watercolor block, even if it doesn't turn out. So leaning into that and not being afraid of wasting the piece of paper that I could make a finished piece on and letting that part go. Overall, I really feel like The Artist's Way does have some useful guidance, but it also has some questionable pieces as well. Some of the advice is just not practical. It was written 25-ish years ago, so it's going to be a little bit dated, and that's fine. And then you also have to take what it's giving you and apply it to your own life. You can't take everything at face value because it's just not practical. There is no one-size-fits-all method of enhancing your creativity. So definitely take everything in the book with a grain of salt. For me, the biggest thing that I struggled with was the artist's dates. And I didn't see that coming. I thought I was going to love those. And I finally figured out why I struggled so much with those. And I think it's because the artist dates want you to do something alone. They want you to take your time and isolate yourself and just go off and have your artist's time. And for me, I'm alone all the time. I work from home. I work alone. I don't have a lot of time with my coworkers unless I'm traveling for work. And I'm just hanging out by myself all day. And that gets really isolating and really lonely. And even though I'm an introvert and I do enjoy being alone, it was really hard for me to then, in my free time, say either to my friends if I was visiting them when I was traveling, or to my spouse if we're here, to say to them, I'm not going to hang out with you in my free time. I need to go do an artist date by myself. And I found for me, spending time in community with other people who bring me joy, that really fills up my creative cup way more than spending 30 minutes alone. I did the thing, I could check it off, but I didn't get a lot out of it. So moving forward, I'm actually going to try to intentionally have like a friend date every week. And luckily where I live, I've got a great community of artists, and a lot of my friends who aren't part of that community are also artists as well. So just having some time either to go on a walk with a friend or have coffee with a friend, for me, I definitely think spending time with others is what gives me more energy to create than spending time alone. Overall, I am really glad that I did The Artist's Way for however long it took me. I do feel like it enhanced my creativity, and I've made more art in the last 3 months than I have previously. But I will say that I am looking forward to not having the assignments and the tasks to do every week and getting back into a little bit more of a normal routine for me. I am going to keep up the morning pages, like I said, and my daily sketchbook practice because that's been really helpful as well. But I'm not going to have the pressure of all of the other pieces of The Artist's Way. So a little bit more time for knitting and maybe eventually getting out my quilting. And I'm excited to start talking more about the books that I'm reading and the knitting and the quilting in my upcoming videos. So if you've done The Artist's Way, I'd really love to hear about your experience with it. What did you take away from the process? What were your biggest lessons? And are you still doing the morning pages? Are you still doing the artist dates? How are those going for you? I'd love to know what you thought of it. So definitely leave me a comment down below. And I hope you're having a great week wherever you are. And I'll see you in the next one. Excuse me. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning. It's Wednesday now, somehow. Did we miss Tuesday? I guess I kind of did. I'm not sure. But anyway, hello. Welcome